we know a lot of people who are on this, and hopefully we'll get a few more as we go. But you guys, thanks for joining us. As we've communicated to a lot of you, or if you don't know already, our goal here at the Podcast Collective is to elevate the medium overall, and we are very specific in most of what we do to the fitness, health, and wellness industries. So um, as we are exploring ways to add value to our community of podcasters, artificial intelligence seems to be, I mean, it's like every conversation I have nowadays, right? Whether it's the dinner table or it's a podcast or it's a client conversation. And podcasting as a medium or content creation is no different. It's going to be absolutely changed by how AI evolves and our adoption of it. So when Shannon and I were, mostly Shannon was pulling this all together on what kind of value you want to do on such a broad topic. Everyone here probably has different experiences with, generative AI, whether it be just, using it a few times to proofread a newsletter to actually more advanced and in-depth tactics and strategies with AI. So what we decided on, let Shannon describe it more as, just a couple practical things that most people don't do, including myself. So Shannon kept asking me, do you do this? Do you do this? I'm like, no, no. And what we're going to talk about today, I'm actually extremely excited to learn. I'm really happy that we're recording it. So I'll shut up now. We'll let Shannon kind of take it away, but thanks for everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, you can, we want this interactive. So if you guys want to, have a question, just raise your hand, and I'll let Shannon know, or you can just unmute and let her rip too. So, yep, there we go. Go for it, Shannon.
Perfect. So basically, I just wanted to go briefly. So we're just going to go over what generative AI actually is, understanding LLMs, prompt engineering, how to actually train and use a custom GPT. And then we're going to give our list of all the AI tools that we've researched and know to be very effective in the podcasting space. So Rod, that for example, that's like how you could go and check and see how many listeners and followers and engagement and things like that. And then we'll just open it up for the last 10, 15 minutes for any questions and so for or any discussion. And so when we get into generative AI, and again, we're kind of describing it for the purpose of this webinar. I mean, generative AI is just such a huge scope, but for the purpose of this webinar, we're defining generative AI as artificial intelligence that creates new content, text, image, music, code, by learning patterns from massive data sets. So, applicably, it would be like a super smart assistant that never sleeps, drinks too much coffee, and is always ready to help you create human-like content. And who doesn't want that? I know I certainly do. And then when we get into LLMs, which you probably hear thrown around a ton, just to help build the little bit of a foundation. LLMs are like your genius buddy who's read every book, watched every documentary, and never gets tired of helping you out. So on the back end, what it's doing is it's using neural networks and deep learning. So there's just a huge models out there that are consuming and analyzing vast amounts of data, and from that data, it is creating content that is very coherent and actually often indistinguishable from human-made content. And so that's where it really becomes an asset to people like us. Popular LLMs that you've probably seen, or maybe you haven't seen because typically they're in the back end powering softwares that you're used to interacting with. But these are the main ones that are out there. And so most software is built off of at least one of these LLMs. Now, when we go over what LLMs are actually good at, there's 6 main categories. So they're really good at creating content. They're great at classification. You see the word intelligent classification. That is because LLMs can actually learn and make decisions. So, you're not necessarily just tagging it like in your CRM or Go High Level or Active Campaign. It's actually, it can intelligently learn and continue to learn your market segments, classify your episodes, any kind of use case that you can think of that requires some intelligent application. LLMs are great at that. They are also great at information extraction. They're great at rewriting. I'm sure everybody's dabbled a little bit now with having at least ChatGPT or some form of writing your newsletters or trying to write your emails. They're also really great at question answering uh, and information summarization. So, again, within each of these categories, there is just an infinite way where we can just extract value. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're kind of going to dive into a couple of different use cases that we believe would be helpful for podcasters right now. One of the things that you may or may not have heard of, because we are all on different stages of the spectrum at this point with AI, is the power of prompt engineering. Now, if you have heard of prompt engineering, you will understand how crucially important this is for you to interact with artificial intelligence. So, prompt engineering is a fancy way of basically saying like how we communicate with artificial intelligence. You can imagine that artificial intelligence, much like human intelligence, is very dependent on the information that you are and the clarity by which you are disseminating that information to the technology or to the person. So, to really kind of take a step back to what is a prompt. So, a prompt is a clear and specific set of instructions or a question given to the AI in order to get a desired response. So when we're thinking about it from something that's normal to us, which is interacting with maybe an assistant or perhaps some staff members. So if you are in an authoritative position and you are asking your assistant to help you with something or maybe an employee, the better instructions you give, the more information and the more context you provide, the clearer the objective, the better the outcome is going to be from your employee or from your assistant. And this is 100% the case when it comes to artificial intelligence. So, for example, I just gave a bad prompt. So let's say you've recorded your podcast episode, you've downloaded your transcript, you upload it into your artificial intelligence, and now you're like, generate an engaging blog post from this episode for my audience. The output is probably going to be decent because of the way large language models work, but it's not going to be as good as it could be if you give it more context and information. And so what I've done is on this next slide, oops, um, this is actually an art, and we're going to start, I believe, we're going to start to see it more and more in organizations, prompt engineering, because the thing is that once you find good prompts, you should be documenting them. You should be having like a spreadsheet or some kind of rolling document within your organization or even for just yourself where you can now continue to go back to and copy and paste, knowing it's going to push out the information that you want it to based on that specific prompt. So, what happens a lot of the time, we waste our own time because every time we open a new chat or we interact with artificial intelligence, we're literally writing we're asking it to do something, and if we don't write down exactly what we asked it to do at the time where it pushes out the information exactly the way we want it, we're going to end up having to like play around with it, waste our time on the next chat because you forgot what the exact prompt you gave it on the first chat. And so this is just honestly like a waste of time. So if you start to build a repository or some sort of a list or a database of your prompts, this is going to save tons of time going forward because you could know, hey, when I'm asking it to write a blog, this is the prompt I'm giving it. When I'm asking it to write a newsletter, this is the prompt I'm giving it. When I'm asking it to interact with my audience, this is the prompt I'm giving it. So again, just cutting down your own time. So one of the things that we've discovered is that there's about six, I guess, key success factors when prompting your AI. So number one, role assignment. This was actually really interesting, and I've tried it over and over and over again, and it works like a charm. So when you're talking to AI or when you're interacting with artificial intelligence, a lot of times we're just telling it the task, but we're not telling it who they are. So, for example, I know Eric started to do this, but he started to say, "You are a podcaster in the fitness industry for 14 years. You specialize in technology." Like, you need to tell the AI who it is. If you're writing some kind of marketing collateral or something, you can tell it, "You are a CEO of a senior marketing firm that has been in the industry for 30 plus years in the US." Like, when you tell the AI who it is, because of its mass pools of data, it knows how to get into that brain and then deploy the information back to you. So that's a game changer, I think, right there. Then, of course, which is obvious, but maybe not quite so obvious, clearly stating the action that you want the AI to perform, giving it the amount of context that you would give an assistant or you would give an employee, formatting it in a way, or actually telling it to format it in a way that is most useful to you. So it can spit out spreadsheets, it can spit out graphics, it can spit out a copy and paste, it can spit out code. So again, like telling it, I want this in something I can copy and paste into an Excel document, or I want this in a way that's easily recognizable in a long tail word Google Doc. You can tell it specifically how you want to extract that information. And then giving examples are also very helpful. For example, if Eric is perhaps like wants to write a LinkedIn post, giving it examples of, hey, here's some LinkedIn posts that I've done in the past. Make sure that you're using this type of language. Make sure that you're using, the keywords that I use. And keep in mind, you can do this now, not just by copying and pasting a page. Now you can upload files. So you can literally screenshot your LinkedIn profiles. You can screenshot your Instagram grids and then just upload that, and it can read that from an image. And then, of course, incorporating feedback loops. So this is reiterating and continual iteration on your actual conversation. So let's say it spits something back to you for your YouTube content post, and hey, the timing, I actually want to highlight certain times in my talk. And it didn't do it the first time. You can continue to reiterate and tell it, okay, now I want you to do this. This is great, but now I want you to do that. Keep this, but I need you to improve this. So mastering AI prompts, I promise you, saves you the most time when dealing with artificial intelligence. And then what I wanted to do, and I don't want to scare anybody, but like this really is an example of a good prompt. And that's why I'm saying creating that database for yourself, because you don't want to sit there and type this every single time. But this truly is an example of a good prompt. So you're an experienced SEO copywriter. We're telling it who it is, specializing in health and fitness and technology. Generate a 1,500 word blog to promote my podcast episode titled The Future of Wearable Fitness Technology. The blog post should include the following elements to ensure maximum engagement, traffic, and downloads. You're telling it the objectives. So you want it to be attention grabbing. You want it to use persuasive call to actions. You want it to tie back internal links to other blog posts that can boost your SEO. You want it to pull relevant statistics, studies, citing URLs. You want it to include notes. You want it to research the best performing keywords throughout the blog. You want it to use long tail keywords to capture different search intents. You want it to write SEO friendly meta descriptions for the blogs. You want it to tailor the content to resonate with a particular audience. And you want it to match the tone, cadence, personality of all your other blogs that you've written. And so this is where you can put in your URLs, you can upload your old blogs, But this truly is an example of a good prompt. Usually we kind of are just like write a blog. So we're going to walk through a use case right now. And this use case is going to be about how to create and train and use a custom GPT. I want to maybe, Eric, we could just like pause really quickly and then just see how everybody is feeling. Because again, I think we're all at different stages. This is going to be very much more like a step-by-step walkthrough of how you can create your own custom GPT. But if we don't grasp the first part, it might be
Yeah.
a little hard.
I'm curious, like, for how many people is this newish? How many people are currently like already taking these steps? Like how far along? I mean, if you guys, everybody can unmute, I believe, if they want and just say like, hey, this is new to me, it's not new to me. Or if you want to post in the chat, that'd be great too. It just kind of helps us get an understanding of like where the podcast world is. Yeah. Any thoughts or questions or feedback so far? And welcome, Justin, as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to assume everybody is uh, up to speed with what we just walked through.
Cool.
And I'm going to continue on with our use case. So why create a custom GPT? Creating a custom GPT offers significant advantage over using regular chat GPT. So here I've just done like a side-by-side comparison of a custom GPT versus a regular chat GPT. Most of us probably are interacting with chat GPT based on its free model or maybe even its paid model, but not understanding what you can do with the paid model. So when you create a custom GPT, you're literally training it just with your data. When you're using chat GPT, it's pulling from all the data that's ever been input into it over the past, I think they've been working on it for like 10, 15 years. But so you could see already the value of like, yeah, I mean, but I'm not a podcaster in the space of, I don't know, even AI, for example, like I'm in health and fitness or I'm in wellness or I specialize in this. So again, you're literally training it to be you or to understand the industry that you're in. When you have a custom GPT, it can start to say as truth, like, this is the style I speak in, this is the way I generate content. This helps by having you not have to every single chat go in and be like, you are a 14-year veteran in the fitness and wellness industry. You are a podcast host that has had a podcast for 5 years. Your audience is X. You're not going to have to continually tell it who it is every time you open up a new chat. Then you are also going to have control over the data. So what ChatGPT is, or any LLM is, it's just a mass pool of data. So every time you interact with it, you're training that model, right? You're training the entirety of Llama or Genesis or ChatGPT. And so some people, and I think this is going to become more prevalent over the years when we start to understand it better, but some people don't want their private information to be training a public model. So when you use a custom GPT, which is a paid model, and you open it in your paid model, that is a closed system. So the whatever you are doing in that closed system is not being used to train the big public model of AI. So again, with maybe highly sensitive information, you want it to look at legal documents, uploading this information into a closed model, like a custom GPT versus an open model, will protect that information. And then it also helps you automate tasks. And this is kind of what I've been sticking on for the past little bit of like not having to continually tell it who it is, tell it how to write a blog, tell it how you want it to write a newsletter, tell it how you want to speak to your Instagram audience, how you want it to speak to your YouTube audience. You can train it to know these things in a custom GPT. So I'm just going to walk through how to actually do this. And again, we're recording this, so you'll have access to this after the fact. But basically, what you're going to do within ChatGPT is you're going to sign up for the paid program. I believe it's like $20 a month, money well spent. Um, you're going to navigate to the GPT page, and then you're going to click on this Explore GPT on the left-hand side of your screen, and you're going to hit this Create button here, which is on the top right, to create your new GPT. Then it's going to ask you, right? So it says, "Hi, I'll help you build a new GPT." You can say something like, make a creative who helps generate visuals for new products, make software engineer who helps format my code. Okay. So now you're going to tell it its purpose. What does it do? What do you want this GPT to do? For the purpose of this presentation, we want our GPT to basically be our social media copywriter. So this is the prompt I would give it. I want to create a GPT that automatically generates engaging social media posts, promotional content after each of my podcast interviews. It should tailor to contents of Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook using the tone and style that resonates with my audience on each platform. So you're telling it, this is your purpose. This is why you exist. Then it's going to ask you to create a profile picture and a name for your GPT. It's super simple, so you just follow the prompts. Then it's going to ask you what your tone and style is, because we've just told it we want you to be our social media copywriter. So I just based it off Eric's podcast, Future of Fitness. We want you to be innovative and forward thinking. We want you to focus on the latest trends, technologies, innovations in fitness industry. The tone should reflect like being forward looking, optimistic, visionary. We want it to be professional and authoritative. We want it to be engaging and accessible. And so this is how you would now articulate this to the GPT builder. So I put in quotations verbatim, like what we would upload to tell it now, like based on, we just defined our tone, we just defined our style. Now, this is how you would upload that in building your GPT. So for our Instagram audience, we want Instagram captions that are energetic, engaging, that reflect the innovative spirit of Future of Fitness podcast. We want a conversational tone. We want fitness related emojis. We want to use these hashtags. Um, of course, as you continue on, you can also tell it to search for the best hashtags, but this is how you're building your model. And then on LinkedIn, now LinkedIn's a different audience. So on our LinkedIn, we want you to write posts that are professional, thought-provoking, emphasizing the innovative aspect of Future Fitness podcast. We want to use industry-specific terminology. We want to encourage professional discussions around fitness trends and technology. And then for YouTube, of course, another different audience. We want it to generate YouTube descriptions that are informative, authoritative. We want it to be clear summaries. We want to include timestamps. We want to encourage viewers to engage by subscribing and commenting. It'll also ask you if you want to add or refine anything. And so we added, ensure that the tone and style remain consistent across all platforms to strengthen the brand identity, and tailor the content to encourage interaction from my audience by asking questions or prompting discussion. So this is how you create, configure, and test your GPT. So we created it, right? We told it what it was, what its purpose was, and we told it all the things that we wanted it to do. Then you're going to be able to see in your chat GPT, you're going to be able to see this. So this is, we named it our social media promoter. The description was generate tailored social media content after podcast interviews. These are the instructions that I just discussed that we put it in. These are the different types of conversation starters I want it to do. You'll see this section down here, which I'm going to go through in a second. And then this is a preview section. So this preview section allows you to test it out and make sure when you're asking it questions, it's giving you the right information that you want back. So Now creating it, now we've done all this. Now we're going to click the button on the top right, which says create, and that's going to create your GPT. That's now your custom built GPT. Then on the top, you're going to click on the configure button, and now we're going to train it. Okay. So basically, your GPT is live, it's yours, we've built it, and now we want to train it. So when we train it, what we're going to do is on the configuration page that we just saw down here, we're going to want to upload as many relevant podcast transcripts as you have, any show notes that would help the GPT learn more about what it is that you do, and any past social media posts. So again, these can be screenshots, these can be documents, these anything to do with your podcast. This is the brain of your GPT. So anything you want it to know as truth is this is where you're uploading all of your information. Then you just click the save button. And then again, we're going to start asking it a couple questions just to make sure that it's spitting out the exact right information that you want it to give. So questions like, hey, create an Instagram post summarizing the latest episode, generate a LinkedIn summary, write a YouTube description, and then, of course, like fine tune as needed, right? You can always go back into your GPT and edit the builder part of it. So one thing that I think this slide really helps in defining is permanent learning versus real-time learning. And so permanent real-time learning, this is probably what most of us are used to. So we're just interacting with AI, we're typing, we're telling it who we are, we're telling it we want it to do. We're just having this ongoing dialogue with it. Now, what's going to happen is that when as soon as you open a new chat or as soon as you go to another page in your AI, it's not going to retain that information, so you're going to have to tell it again, right? Permanent learning happens when we train our GPT or we retrain our GPT with new data. So it ensures that it retains and consistently applies what you trained it to do across all future interactions. So you're not having to continually go back and tell it who it is, what your podcast is, who your audience is. So just kind of summarized here, if you want your GPT to always know something, right? Like the main themes of your podcast, your audience, your industry, certain things that you hold as truths that maybe, are debatable within the industry. This is what you want. You want it to permanently learn these things so that it's always applying that knowledge and that perspective to all of your content. Now, I know we don't have too much more time, but again, our top picks for AI tools that we have used in the past or know that basically have really great reviews or we know someone that uses them. So content creation and editing. And sorry, I'm like switching topics here now, but want to make sure we're giving you the most value that we possibly can. But content creation and editing, these are our top 4 picks. So Descript, Podcastle, Cast Magic, and Alitu. These are the top 4 content creation and editing AI platforms that we would recommend you using. We personally use Descript. For SEO and marketing, the top AI tools for podcasters would be Podium, Newlink, Casted, Surfer SEO, and Market Muse. And again, I've put a blurb about each of them so you can kind of go through and see which one might work best for you. Audio enhancement and processing, these are the top 4 that we have chosen that are AI based. So Aphonic, Beethoven, Suno, and Adobe Podcast. So that now goes under Project Shasta, which you'll find in your Adobe suite. But these are the AI based tools that we know will ensure high quality sounds for your episodes. Then for engagement and analytics, these are the best tools that we've found that are AI to help podcasters optimize their content strategies. So listener.fm, Minvo, Podcast Page, Chartable, and Raphonic. We personally use Raphonic. These are great for understanding your engagement and your analytics across multiple platforms. Also to understand, if you're getting invited to be a guest on a podcast, you can check their audience listeners, how many downloads they get, who their audience is. You can basically kind of fact check them and see how prevalent they are in a particular industry, how active their audience is with them. And then for advertising and promotion, the top picks for an AI tool would be Ad Creative, Opus Pro, Headliner, and Wave.video. We use Opus Pro. It's fantastic it's AI generated to pull out the best highlights from your clips. And, there's just all types of features that come along with that to repurpose your podcast content into like reels or other short videos. Calendar management and planning. These two, there's not a ton out there that I think are personally great, but again, this is just our opinion. So Motion and Reclaim.ai are, we think, the best AI tools to help you manage your calendar and plan, your meetings or your podcasts. Now, I've said a lot, and we're going to kind of open the floor into some questions and discussions. These are a couple icebreaker questions on the back end, but would be super happy to hear any feedback. I know I went through a lot, and I promise you my presentation was like double this size, so I hope it wasn't too much. I tried to scale it back, but I'm gonna stop talking now.
I have a question off the bat, Shannon. With the going back to the training data for your GPT, you mentioned uploading like for podcasts specifically, scripts and things like that. But can
No
you
notes.
can you put like LinkedIn post, like a link to an actual post, and it'll use that? Okay.
So when you're training your GPT, the
Mm-hmm.
best thing to do would be to open a Google Doc, just copy all your best LinkedIn posts or Instagram posts, put it into that document, and then upload it as a document. That
Okay.
would be the best way to train it. And if you also want it to know something as truth, and you're like, but I never wrote it down anywhere, or it's not really implied in a lot of my content, you can literally write like, my podcast believes that X is true and Y exists and this, and you can just upload that as a document. You're literally just putting information into its brain. So just because it's not on your LinkedIn, just because it's not in your show notes, like tell it what you think. Write a whole page on like, this is what I think, this is what's going on in my brain, and upload that as a document. It will then retain that as truth.
Could I just put a link to my LinkedIn profile and it would pull, or is that too much information?
When you are engaging with your GPT after you've created it, totally. But
Hmm.
for the purpose of building it, I have, to me, putting hard data is the best way when you're building it. But when you're interacting with it and you're like, hey, check out this URL, do this, I think that's totally fine. But when you want to tell it like truths that it considers like, I'm not wavering from this, I think the best thing to do is to put it in like a Google document or some kind of document and upload it as a document instead of just dropping URLs. Because here's the thing, if you drop a URL to your LinkedIn page, it's going to go through your entire LinkedIn. And keep in mind, you haven't trained it yet, so it doesn't 100% know what it's looking for. So we're not going to be sure that it's going to extrapolate the exact information that you want it to. So it's better to maybe pick your top 5 LinkedIn posts that you love, that you're like, man, if I could just keep cranking these out, that would be awesome. That would be more ideal.
Got it. Cool. Sorry, I don't mean to hog the question. Any Paul, Megan, Corey, Daisy, Rob, you guys got questions? Paul, I see you're off move, but I can't
No
hear
real
you.
question, Eric. Just a huge
Oh, there we
thanks to Shannon and yourself for putting this forward. It's Paul from Athletica AI. And like just with the one prompt question there, we use at Athletica, we have our sort of our own inbuilt AI that we use for we're like an AI coach for the fitness industry. And
Mhm.
we have our own sort of inbuilt thing. We keep it away from GPT for privacy and for our own IP protection and whatnot. We do leverage GPT for communication. Just what GPT does best is a large language model, so we leverage it for language back to the user. So I found it really helpful personally to actually look at the in-house GPT. I forget the actual term, but and I love how you really created a roadmap there for us. And I guess what I learned on this is that I can be using this a whole lot better myself personally and also across my team. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
You're so
awesome. I think I learned the same thing, Paul.
such a game changer. Like, especially, if we work with VAs or people like, you know, it's literally we can just provide, we can custom build the GPT for them and then let our VAs do all the input or the work or the refining, but at least we know, like, okay, the data it's going to pump out is solid. I've already confirmed, like, this is the tone, this is the style, this is what I want it to know as truth. So I think there's just going to be continually more use cases for this, but
Yeah.
not everybody has all the time to play around with these
That's
systems.
just it, right? So as a founder, right, like I'm just across absolutely everything, and it's like drinking from a fire hose, as everyone probably knows, right? So, but
Yeah.
it's like this is really a way that you can become more efficient. Like this is kind of time well spent to go and do this, and so
You only
yeah,
have to do
and
it
I took
once.
I took screenshots right across the whole
Awesome.
thing. I'm going to download the playback just for clarity on these things and share it with my marketing team. And we're going to do this. So this is great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Love to hear it.
Any other questions, you guys? Megan or Daisy? Cool. Well, you guys, yeah, if you do have questions, I think everyone knows where to reach.